Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shota Deolusegun. In today's video, I want us to look at the mechanical system of the universe at quantum level. Well, we know that when a ball is being supplied with additional force, such that the ball travels up like this and then later get down and get dropped on the floor in the future. With this kind of movement, we can actually track the momentum of the ball by using classical mechanics, using the formula developed by Sir Isaac Newton to track the momentum of such ball. So we track the movement step by step as it follows that trajectory. But now, when it comes to quantum mechanics, can we actually track such movement? Well, we use Schrodinger wave equation to actually track the probabilistic nature of quantum particles, but we can't actually pin down or actually get the movement in real time as such. But now we want to look at what formula of everything has helped us with in getting the mechanical system at quantum level, such that we'll be able to see the progression and the momentum of a quantum particle just as we have in classical world. Now what I want us to know is, for instance, let's look at a ball. If a ball is being kicked, and then if that ball goes up just as we have in this diagram, then once we know the initial condition of the ball, the position of the ball, we can actually work out the trajectory of the ball and then get to know the position of the ball in the future. Now, the first thing I want us to take note here is that as the ball goes up to the point that it reaches the peak and then starts dropping down to another location in space, we can actually portray the trajectory, the whole journey as past phase, the point, the maximum point, the peak of that trajectory. We can tag that the present, while the descending of the ball, we can actually tag that future phase. So we're going to see how all these are applicable to the whole system later on. Now, what I want us to know is that once the moment the ball is being kicked, there are some things happening at quantum level. So we can see the ball, we see how the ball is moving, we can follow the trajectory as the ball is moving without experiencing any kind of disappearance at one point in time or the other. But at quantum level, we shouldn't forget that a force is being introduced into the system, and that force is what is propelling the ball to follow that trajectory. That same force is going to actually affect the quantum particles of the ball, and then the activities of the particles as the ball is traveling, journeying into the future. The activities of the particle will as well have impact on the trajectory of the ball that we can see. So what do I mean by that? Now, when we look at the past phase of the ball will struggle, because as the ball is traveling against the force of gravity, it will be accumulating what is known as potential energy. So the kinetic energy will be converted to potential energy as the ball is going through, is as the ball is following the trajectory in the past phase. And that is what we have seen by applying formula of everything. So with that, we get to know the difference between the past phase and then the future phase. We know that at quantum level, as time is traveling inversely to energy, in that past phase we have accumulation of mass, and then this accumulation of mass has to be in constant progression. And it is for this reason that we have the classical gravity, which is constant, and I'm going to actually talk more on that, and we're going to see how quantum gravity can actually compensate for variation in classical gravity to make it constant. We are going to see that. But before we delve into that, what I want us to know is that as the ball is going towards the time wave, because the ball is actually being lifted from the earth and then it's traveling away from the earth. That simply means that the ball is traveling into the past. And then as it's journeying through the past phase, then there will be accumulation of mass that will be suppressing the force, such that the force is being converted from kinetic to potential energy. Now, as that is happening, then another thing is happening as well at quantum level. Now, this is the past phase in the time energy wave diagram. Now, as the ball is going up in that past phase, then the quantum particles of the ball, they are traveling inversely to the classical formation of the ball. And this is being done in such a way that the journey of the particles, quantum particles, towards the energy, the journey of the quantum particles towards that energy wave to really reach the low energy state, that energy wave is being contracted in such a way that it generates radiation, because the radiation will have to support and then create momentum that will facilitate the formation of mass in this past phase. Now, by having that kind of mass formation, then the speed, the momentum, the kinetic energy will gradually be converted to potential energy. Then the moment the ball reaches the peak, then there will be no more kinetic energy at that point. And that point is the present point. That is the point of transition from the past into the future. So now, once it gets to the peak, then the whole of kinetic energy must have been converted to potential energy. And then by the time it enters the future phase, and as the ball is descending, then the entirety of the potential energy will as well be converted to kinetic energy. So now this kind of momentum is synonymous to, let me see what I can actually use to illustrate this. Take for instance, let's say there is a car, and if the driver of that car is not driving the car at a top speed, if the driver is driving that car slowly, then if there is any sudden occurrence, the driver can actually match the brake. He can even step on the brake till the car is stopped. You understand? So there is no problem, because there is huge room for such introduction of mass formation to make that car to stop. So the person can actually march on the brake for that car to stop, because the car is not traveling at high speed. So the rate at which the car is traveling has created enough room for additional introduction of mass formation that can slow down, that can convert that little kinetic energy to potential energy. That is for a car. But now let's look at a car that is traveling at a top speed. If there is a sudden occurrence, the driver of such car cannot march on the brake and then press it down for the car to stop, because that cannot make that car to stop, because there is speed difference factor here. Now, a car that is traveling at a top speed, if you want to make that car to stop, the driver will be marching on the brake intermittently. He will be pressing the brake, releasing his leg on the brake, so as to be slightly introducing mass convergence that will be stopping the car gradually. Because if the driver should march on the brake and then press it down for the car to stop, the car will tumble, because there is a narrow space for introduction of mass convergence that can slow down the kinetic momentum of the car by converting it to potential energy. So the driver will be pressing the brake intermittently till when it gets to a point where the speed has been so reduced that he can then later press the brake and then press it down for the car to stop. So what I'm trying to say is that the past phase is a phase where the particles and even is a phase where particles are traveling against suspension. So the momentum has the feature by as a feature of converting kinetic energy to potential energy because of time energy interaction. So time is traveling inversely to energy, and as such we could have that kind of mass convergence to let the car stop, or to allow a reduced trajectory, or yes, a reduced, like a kind of trajectory that is not so at the top of its speed. So but now the moment it gets to this peak and the ball is now descending, then the potential energy will gradually be converted to kinetic energy. Now in this phase, in the future phase, there is no at quantum level, there is no inhibition, there is nothing that is holding back the speed. The speed is going at full force, and that is why you see that when, just like Einstein said it, that if somebody is in a lift and the lift is dropping down, is coming down at a full speed, the person inside the lift will feel light. The person inside that lift will feel light. So we can use speed difference to know what is applicable at quantum level and what is applicable at a classical level. Now when we look at this phase in our time energy wave model here, we can see that in the future phase, then the quantum particles are now getting their momentum kinetic energy, because the kinetic energy is now getting increased here, unlike here where we have that kinetic energy being reduced in relation to time trajectory or in relation to time wave. So now by as we are having that increment in energy, that what we have there is synonymous to entropy, and that means that we have more radiation. So at this future phase, what is synonymous at quantum level, what is synonymous to what we have here is nuclear fission. And so there is possibility of decay, and that is why the person going through this phase would experience light weight, unlike the person in the past phase. The person in the past phase will experience accumulation of weight because of the trajectory of energy. Energy is being reduced as time scaling is getting wide in this phase. But here, energy is increasing as time scaling is getting narrow. That is what we have here. And now, at this present, we have integration of past and the future. But we see that the line here is vertical, and that simply means that the trajectory here is constant. There is no movement. The trajectory there is instant. Now, what I this formula is meant to unify classical mechanics to quantum mechanics. And by the time we supply the actual mass worth of electron, which is 9.109 times 10 raised power minus 31 kilogram, in the place of this m and this m, we will discover that this mass worth will get us this classical mass worth, which is 2,277,250,000 kilogram. Now, for us to actually get to reconfirm the quantum mass worth, we will need to use the classical mass worth. And so by the time we supply the classical mass worth in place of this m, we will get this quantum mass worth. But now the thing is, the trajectory is far beyond what we have as wave amplitude. Now, by getting this classical mass worth, we have a wave amplitude with it, which is 5.7 times 10 raised power minus 48. Now, people may argue that this formula here is a linear formula. So they may say, how come we have wave amplitude? We know that wave is curvy. So wave is not a linear line, it's curvy. So now, how can we get this kind of wave, the amplitude of the wave right here? Okay, let me try and see how I can explain that. Now, by getting the amplitude of the wave to get this classical mass worth, we have 5.7 times 10 raised power 48. Now, we can see that this is not instant. The value is not instant. And because the value is not instant, and because it has no negative to the power, so we can draw the line right from this point straight up like this to another point right here. We shouldn't forget the reason we have the line from here to this point, which is like the middle of the wave trajectory, is because once we have this wave amplitude, we realize that the value of this 4m is being suspended to that wave amplitude. So that is being suspended at, and that is what we have here. It is being suspended at 32nd of zeros. So the wave amplitude has 5.7 times 10, and then we have 000 up to 32nd, where the value of this 4n is suspended to it, and then we have more zeros then till we get to 48th power. So based on this, we know that the suspension of that suspension that we have will be at this point. Because it's a suspension, it can't be at the peak of the time energy wave, so it can be situated around this place. So now we only have this straight line here. Now how can we now take this value that is being suspended, how can we take it back such that we annihilate these zeros? And you know that once we do that, we can actually transform that into a standard form number. And so we now make this suspended value to go back to annihilate all these zeros by having 9109 over 10 raised power 32, which is the power at which the value is suspended. And then we have equal to, so we now have 9.1 times 1 all over 10 raised power minus 32. So by cross multiplication, you know that we have 9.109 times 10 raised power minus 32. Now you see that the difference we have is a power of -1. The difference that we have for this electron mass is that power. So what that is telling us is that this electron mass is being thoroughly optimized, because at quantum level this particular value has traveled beyond the limit of time energy wave model. So it has gone into superconductivity level, and as a result of that, we have it being thoroughly optimized, and so we have the difference of 32. So basically what this is telling us is that the happenings at quantum level usually affect the classical level. So it's not, we know that as mass is getting more huge by convergence, then the functionality of quantum particles will be eliminated. You understand? But those particles, they still have effect. Now I said something the other time. I said that this phase is a decaying phase, but we see that the ball is not in any way decayed as it enters the future phase. The reason that is so is because the speed difference that we have as energy keep on increasing in relation to this time, in relation to that ball dropping, is still under the trajectory of time, and as a result of that, we will not have the effect of the decay, but we can have that effect as a result of the body of the ball being light than the way it will be heavy in the past. That is what we will experience. But the moment we get to this momentum phase, where energy is ahead, is far above time wave, then the decaying mechanism will have effect, and at that point, then we can see the effect of that decay at momentum phase. This is momentum phase, this is position phase. So now let me continue with what I'm trying to explain. So now we have this to this point. By annihilating the zeros, we know we are annihilating zeros. So zeros means instant, constant. So it's not going to be diagonal as this line that we have, so it will be straight down. So this line from here down to this quantum level represents the annihilation process, and so it is straight down, and that means that it's a constant vertical bar or or instant transmission from quantum level to classical, from quantum level to classical level, or from classical level to quantum level. Good. So now we have the connection here. So we know that this side as we have it, but now by having the annihilation process, the vertical bar is longer than what should be within the time energy wave model, because we can only get the real electron mass outside the time energy wave model, and that is synonymous to what I've been saying concerning a car being at its top speed. You have a narrow space to accommodate mass convergence, and as a result of that, we also have a small narrow space right here. So that small narrow space cannot contain the actual mass of electron. For you to know that we really have a very narrow space at quantum level here. Now let's say we stop at this point, at this quantum mass convergence, and we know that the wave amplitude at classical level must also be replicated at quantum level, because there must be a symmetry. And by having that, that means we will have to compress this energy wave such that this value that we have will be reduced to 5.7 times 10 raised power minus 48. And so we now compress, and that is now telling us that the functionality at quantum level is inverse to the functionality at classical level. So the energy wave at quantum level is contracted to have the necessary speed difference in terms of radiation to support the mass convergence formation that will expand the universe. So now that we now have that, we can draw another line that we join to this point. If you look at what we now have here, what we have here is the same thing as equilateral triangle. We now have equilateral triangle. Don't forget that this quantum mass convergence and this classical mass convergence, they are being suspended to time energy wave interaction. And so the line that we have here will be reduced to what will be equal to these two sides. And so we have equilateral triangle right there. By having this equilateral triangle, we know that triangle, when you have equilateral triangle, you have 60 degrees for all the three angles. And so if we sum the 60 degree, if we sum all of them together, we're going to have 180. We're going to have 180 degree. We're going to have 180 degree. I want to explain, what I'm trying to explain is to explain this wave amplitude that we have. I want to explain the curvature of this time energy wave model. So right now what we have is a triangle. By the virtue of dimensions, that is, when you move from one point to another point, there must be an inverse relation to implement relativity. We shouldn't forget that relativity is known to be time dilation to length contraction. So the time dilation is what we have here at classical level, where time is scaled so wide. but relative to narrow energy. So energy is being contracted. Definitely, that simply means that the wavelength of the energy is contracted. So now that we have that, we need to move to this future point, which is the black hole. This is evolutionary singularity right here, and this is future singularity. So this future singularity is the black hole, and this is evolutionary singularity. Now, for us to complete the circle, we need to move from this triangle, half triangle that we have here. We need to move it and let it get connected to this future singularity. So by the time we move that, the triangle will be flipped, and so we have a mirror of this equilateral triangle, and so we still have 60-60. Then the total sum of this triangle as well will be 180 degree. Good. So now, by the virtue of 180, if we sum that together, we're going to have 360 degree. And so once we have 360, you know what that means? It actually means that the two inverted triangles are the two inverted triangles could be summed up to a circle. And so if we extrapolate that, then we can now have the curvature of a circle. But the curvature will not be in form of circle, because we have singularity that the circle will have to travel through. And by the factor of traveling through the singularity, that will make the circle to be so stretched, and so it will be in form of oval shape. So now we now have the curvature, which is time energy wave curvature. Another thing I want us to know is that at quantum level, I said it in my research publication, that quantum mechanics is an inverse of classical mechanics. And so the reason we do not have them being collided onto each other, or the reason we do not have them being the reason we do not have them in such a way to annihilate each other, is for the fact that we have suspension. So the mass convergence at the topmost and the bottommost, they are being suspended. They are not traveling through the 0 point that we have there. And as a result of that, quantum mechanics is suspended to classical mechanics. So the only region where they will be able to actually collapse will be in the future. And you can see that the energy of the energy wave is traveling through the central point of the black hole, or the future singularity, and also the energy of the time wave is traveling towards. So with that combined force, they can travel into the future, into the singularity of, they can travel through the singularity of the future. And also right here, you see that the expanding mechanism, emerges from the evolutionary singularity, because the time energy and energy itself, they come out, and so they have the force to burst out of this singularity. So it's only at this evolutionary singularity and future singularity that you will have energy and time, going through, not at the present phase where they get suspended. So now, what I want us to, in some of my previous videos, I have explained thoroughly the essence of going beyond the time energy wave model to get the actual mass worth of electron. I've explained that. You can actually download the video to get more information as regards that. But basically what this video is meant to shed light on is the mechanical system of the universe at quantum level. So how is that now related to the trajectory of the ball that we have here, that we can actually see the momentum all through from the past phase through the present and down to the future phase? So how that is related is for the fact that at quantum level, when we have that relativity effect such that we are at classical level, then relating to quantum mechanics, we're going to have the quantized nature of quantum mechanics, which is synonymous to what I said in applying brake to a car which is at top speed. We see that, but when it gets to the point where that speed is so much reduced, then the driver can apply and match and press down the brake to make the car to stop. That point is this point where this formula of everything has extended energy beyond its threshold by time relativistic scaling, such that the whole momentum has become so reduced that we can then capture the momentum. Now, the low energy state that we have here is not the kind that is real. It's more or less like arbitrary state of rest state. So at this point, we can even capture the mass worth of electron, and the mass worth of electron that we have is this value that we have here, and this is telling us and is giving us the mass worth of electron while electron is in motion. So electron is not absolutely at rest here, but it has a kind of arbitrary system, like a region where its momentum is being restricted such that we'll be able to capture that mass worth. So now the moment we supply this wave amplitude in place of this m and m, we're going to get this value, which is 0.00000001432 or 1423. So what that is telling us is that electron, and that is supporting the value that we have here, is so tiny, so tiny, and it's supporting that notion of uncertainty principle, because when you have a mass worth that is this tiny, such mass worth can never be stable. It can never be stable. So when a slight energy is being introduced, it will cause additional momentum. Now let's now look at having our real mass worth beyond the time energy wave model. Now by this formula, we can travel beyond and get this mass worth. But what happens is that it will only get this mass worth briefly and inject it into that small space. And by injecting it, that will give the momentum of particles more acceleration. Because this fixed point, we need to discuss fixed points too. This fixed point is known as stable fixed point. So if there is no external force, additional force, then particle will not be able to travel towards the singularity. This fixed point is known as unstable fixed point. So because this classical mass worth is being suspended, it will just be stable for a short while and then it can travel down. But for this particle to travel towards the singularity, there must be additional force, and that is the essence of having the real electron mass outside the system, such that it compresses it back to accelerate the momentum towards black hole or towards future singularity. So what that is telling us is that at quantum level there is asymmetric nature of the universe, unlike what we are so conversant with, which is symmetric nature of the universe. So the symmetric nature is needed for us to have this equilibrium point of singularity. It is highly needed, but the reality at quantum level is far beyond the symmetric nature of the universe. So with that, we can see how quantum particles operate, and so we can monitor the trajectory of quantum particle, even as it is so tiny within the time energy wave model. We can track the momentum, but the momentum will be known at the point where the energy is being stretched by time relativistic scaling beyond its limit threshold. This is the point we'll be able to get to track the mass worth of that electron in motion. And by the time we travel far more beyond the time energy wave model, then we get the real mass worth of the electron that must be injected into the system for accelerated momentum towards the future singularity. So that is the mechanical system of the universe at quantum level. Then another thing you need to know is that momentum, the radiation generation at this quantum level is needed to facilitate the mass convergence for the expansion of the universe. And then the accelerated momentum, where we have continuous increase in energy, is needed in this future phase to contract time energy wave model such that the classical particle 2 will be decayed towards the singularity. So that is that for this video. I believe the video is quite insightful and informative. If you like the video, please make sure you like the video for real by clicking the like button. Share it with your friends. Don't hesitate to give comment. I wish to know your opinion. Then don't forget that this is a novel discovery. I'm going to put a link to my research publication in the description description section below, so anyone can click on that link to get the research article being published on peer-reviewed journals to work out what we have on the board. Then another thing that I want you to do is to click on subscription button. Subscribe to this channel so as to be notified for the subsequent video. Thank you. God bless you.